guys back at the show on the beautiful Highway 2000, Edward Sierra Highway, them call it. Ah man, every time I drive on this highway, I just feel good about Jamaica. So let's get back to Pan-Africanism, Garvey. No, a man named Terry, I want to thank you, Pauline, Janet, Maria D, Jean, everybody who supported this program from start to beginning. Cause nothing undone. Basically, what I said to you now is this. I went to Africa. I've lived in New York for 31 years. Worked a lot, did things in my life. But there's one thing that was always at the back of my mind, Jamaica. And since I left Jamaica when I was 14 and loved it so much, in a foreign, I worked very hard. Very hard, you know. And after working so hard for so many years for corporation, I grew up in Charlestown, Maroon-town, Scottsdale, Maroon-town, so I consider myself a Maroon. For me, Maroon is every Jamaican. When people tell you they're Maroon, it really means runaway slave. It doesn't mean a certain kind of people. But again, it's a certain kind of people with a warrior spirit. But that warrior spirit runs in most of Jamaicans because you're mixing of the blood. So it's not like when people talk about Maroons, they don't understand that Maroons are in Nova Scotia. You know, they're all over the world. Okay? So it's a people who rebel from the system. So some families have a more rebellious bloodline. And that rebellious bloodline comes from certain tribes in Africa. Right? The warrior spirit. Now you ask yourself, we're going to get into Pan-Africanism. You ask yourself, Maroon, warrior spirit, Ashanti, why are these people so resistant? Well, it could be what happened in their tribe. It passed through their story and their lineage, how much they had to protect their land, if they had to be hunters and gatherers to face lions and tigers and stuff, depending on where they lived in Africa. Because now your environment makes you who you are. So if you don't have to be, afraid of lions, and you don't have to hunt where you used to live in Africa and there's a river and you're peaceful, it's tradition. So our culture, Jamaica, when the slaves were being brought over here, it was a very rebellious slave, some of the worst slaves in the world. Some of the slaves came from America, and most of them come from Brazil, and the baddest slave they put here in Jamaica. So this is like a prison camp for the war against black people at the time, when they wanted to enslave us, and that 1492 attack on Africa, because Africa was attacked by Christopher Columbus and their friends, by the British system. So now, here we are in 2021. We have land that was freed in the 1700s in a compound town. Where I'm from in Norway, Manchester, that is near a compound town. So in the middle of Jamaica, there's a group of slaves that ran up to the mountains in the middle of Jamaica, Trelawny, St. Elizabeth, and Manchester, right? High up in the mountains. Now, the story says some of these people were actually way before the Indians, okay? The history books have you, a lot of history is actually false. Just like they came before Columbus, Alvin Van Sertima, all right? So to know your history and to know your facts, you have to go to tapvideo.com. There's 600 videos there waiting for you. If you're a Jamaican, you're kind of behind when it comes to your knowledge. So we build a system for you, and that's why I'm going to Marcus Garvey Center on the 17th to celebrate his birthday, to launch the website officially for the liberty of our mind, for mental freedom. So I'm going to segue between the tapvideo.com, why I became a Pan-Africanist, and Maroons and how my life evolved into this mission. So now, mind you, I was born in Norway and Manchester, up near the Catholic, near a compound town, around there, right at the tip, high up, where you see King Baba come from. Now, my grandmother, most of the time people think that the spirit passes on through the male, but it actually passes on through the female. Africa was a matriarchal society. It meant that the female is the foundation of our lives, okay? And I'll segue again, the reason why women were so important, and there's something called Ma'at, M-A-A-T, that's where they get the 10 Commandments from. So this is why the African history is so important. So it was the woman who carried the lineage of the child. It was always about the woman. They switch over a lot of things in colonial history. So my grandmother, flat nose, just like Bob Marley's mother. You see these flat nose, big nose Jamaican women, these black, heavy set women? Those are the ones who have the warriors. Those women are from a special tribe. Those are the mother queen. Those are the queen bees of Africa. All right? So now when you look at Bob Marley's mother, you'll see a certain kind of woman. And now if you look at your grandmother, she have a flat nose and she heavy set. Those are the ones that have the warriors. So I traveled through Jamaica many years and I look at different people and I kind of sense where they're from in Africa. Most of us from Ghana or Nigeria. So now, segue again, when Egypt used to be attacked, they used to go over Nigeria and Ghana to get people to fight in Egypt. So I'm going to give you some history back and forth, but I'm going to kind of make an alignment for you with the United States and Jamaica. So most of the history books are actually lies. Most of what you know is a big, dirty lie. Big, big, big lie. And how they hid a lot of things from us was through language. Once they have the slaves speaking English, the slaves could no longer decipher their history based on the ancient language. So most of us over on the west side here, the West Indies, we don't have access to certain books and certain history. If you look at the University of West Indies and ask yourself, do they study ancient Kemetic principles on hieroglyphics, and how vast is that historical knowledge? And the reason why I could challenge this is because I've worked with some of the gatherers of primary historical information for a long time. And that's what we archived and put on the internet. So tapvideo.com is one of the world's largest African history archive. And now that's the archive that I digitized for 5+ years. That archive was built by a man named Clemson Brown. Now I'm going to segue back and forth to Maroons, to Jamaica, and to why this time in history is so important. 2021. There's a man named Clemson Brown. You could Google him. One day he was preaching, and a man came up to him and said to him, his name was Yochanan Ben. We call him Dr. Ben. And Dr. Ben came up to Clemson Brown and said, why are you lying to the people? And Clemson Brown was a minister. And Dr. Ben came to Clemson Brown and says, why are you lying to the people? And Clemson Brown said, what do you mean? He said, you're lying to them about this religion stuff and all of this. And Dr. Ben said to Clemson Brown, let me take you to Africa. And I'm going to send you guys this story at one point. If you're interested, just email me at JamaicaGoodLife1 if you're interested in really learning your history. So then Dr. Ben said to Clemson Brown, hey, let me bring you to Africa and show you primary information. And that's the first time Clemson Brown recognized that there's something called primary information. Primary information that's written on the wall, physical wall, and in coffins. Secondary information is information that's been translated from that. Okay? So, in Africa, in University of Luxor, we had the first universities in the world, and the historians will teach you more. And when we were attacked in 1492, and even before, they burned 700,000 of our books in the Library of Alexander and took most of our African history and works and hid that history in the basement of the Catholic Church. So, fast forward, Haiti, Jamaica, Brazil, especially Jamaica, this is a 90% prison island. We are prisoners of war. Slavery is prisoners of war. There was a war against us as a people. It wasn't just about servitude and having people work. It was about destroying our culture, our heritage, our religion, our way of life. That's what this war was about. When the other cultures came from the Caucasus Mountain, they didn't have a culture. They didn't have medicine. They didn't have anything. When they came to Africa and University of Luxor, and they saw the Great Pyramids. And the reason why this is so true is because there's no other greater pyramids than in Africa, and statues. And so when they came, the invaders, and they saw what we were doing, they were amazed. And the gold and everything we had. But what they had over us was the gun and the printer. And later on in life, you'll find now the printer became more powerful than the gun. And you're going to go through these lectures with Dr. Henry Clark and all the historians I'm going to give you. The basic idea of this discussion, I'm on a mission to go to Marcus Garvey Liberty Hall, and I'm segueing again, just giving you an overview, to launch tapvideo.com, a project I've been working on for a very long time. So when I went to Africa, I went to show them the website. This historical archive is not just for black people. It's for the entire human race. In order to correct history, these men, great teachers, one of the great teachers, my main teacher, Dr. Henry Clark, and Dr. Ben Ivan Ansertama, Barashango, and Fedishi, these names that I'm saying, if you don't know these names, you have to pause in your life and take some time and play catch up. It's going to take you about 2 years to furnish a new mind for yourself. And why did I kind of play this mission kind of low-key for so long? I wanted to drive to Jamaica, and I wanted to find more of my purpose, why I was here, where should I deliver this amazing material to the world, where should this start? And guess what? Through my journey, I was looking for people who wanted this knowledge. And most of the people that I found in Jamaica, they didn't want this knowledge. It was just really about money and the same old books that they were given. They didn't want to hear anything about Ma'at, M-A-A-T. They didn't care. Anything they heard about Africa, it was negative. So in the mind of a Western colonial mind, a British system like Jamaica, English-speaking culture, without the access for books, they settled for this beautiful island. The sun is shining, life is good, we have music, we have church. Who cares about Africa? Because their mind was already set in stone. The British already cut up Jamaica and decided this is going to be a vacation spot. This is going to be our They cut up all the islands. They divide up Africa, and the conquerors, when they won the war, they build churches to collect taxes from the people, and they scope out the lands and send out their missionaries, and they would have all the churches so they could come back and check on the land that they own. And they put in place certain political systems and government officials to maintain their rule for a very long time. Now, the books they brought into Jamaica was just for that mental ownership. And over your lifetime, maybe you're 60, you've never seen a commercial to go to Nigeria for vacation or Cape Town. So what some might consider a conspiracy is actually facts. For many years, media, television was controlled by the same colonial masters. So they kept television and the programming on radio and television and never exposed the people in these prison islands, prisoners of war, this information. Because if the people started to see Africa back in the 60s, they would probably want to go back to Africa. Whatever you see, you'll probably act on it. So there was no effort in promoting the positive aspect of Africa. What they showed for many years, kids with flies, lions, people walking around, no industry, no university. There's no history of Africa. And then here comes the Rasta movement and Garveyism. And Marcus Garvey started to study. And he got inspired mainly by the African Americans. Because the African Americans had access to the books and the museums. The Jamaicans really didn't have access. I'm going to fast forward to 2018. And even back up to 1992. Dates are very important because dates, some books are translated at a certain time. A book called the Septuaginta, that book is the original Bible. And it's 1992, around that time, that book was translated to English from Greek. That's before the Old Testament. It has the Maccabee in it. So if you want to know where the Bible comes from, that's the book you have to purchase. All right? It's on Amazon. So now, let's get back into Garvey. So what I'm doing, I'm painting a picture for you. So you have a prison island called Jamaica. It became a vacation spot. And all the other island became vacation spot. And Antigua was the breeding ground. That's where they would bring the slaves to breed them to have, because the people in Antigua, you know, were the breeders. And the workers were in Jamaica for the sugar cane. So some of the slaves didn't want to work anymore for the masters, of course. You'll get the history. And they ran to the hills. And they considered themselves Maroons. And they fought. And they had treaties with the British to keep their land. And they had sections. Mind you, the British still control Jamaica. You know, the taxis that you see, the police car, the red coats, all of that is British. This country is English speaking. So then the Rasta movement and the Garvey movement was the resistance. It was the education of Africa. And so now here comes Garvey, here comes the Selassie power that protected Ethiopia. See, Africa had a war waged against her. And Selassie now was one of the greatest African defenders of black people. Ethiopia was never conquered. And because of that serene, powerful, meek human being, it protected Africa from the conquerors. So Selassie played a very important role in protecting the sacred nature of a part of Africa that was never conquered, Ethiopia. And this is why Ethiopia is one of a very important place for history, because it was never conquered by the colonial ones, by the ones at the Berlin Conference that cut up Africa and split it up for themselves and create economical systems. So they had to destroy all the African religions, and they had to create a bad imagery of all our systems and our cultures. So what they did, they created something called Egyptology. And they started to dig off the nose of the Sphinx and the Akhenaten and all the pharaohs, so that you couldn't identify that these were black people. Where are these powerful monuments built in Africa? So this is why they never advertised on television, and they start saying aliens build the pyramids. Now, 40,000 years ago, the Sphinx, around that time, up in that region where the original people civilization starts, Nubia. The River Nile is a very important river in your life that you should always think about. The River Nile. That's where it all starts. So, to get a full understanding of everything I'm talking about, you go to tapv.com. There's a lot there. So I'm giving you a summary. So they attacked Africa. They created Egyptology. They destroyed our religion and our culture. And they brought us to, some of us, to new lands, but some of us were already here in America and in Jamaica. Call us the indigenous people. Meaning that before Spaniards and all of those history books, they were actually black people sailing the waters. The inventors of boats and everything are black people. Navigation. And now as you get into your history lessons, the Moor now becomes very important. The Moor. The Moors. Most of the world civilization was developed by the Moors. Laws. Okay? Morocco is a very important place. Okay? In Italy, you'll watch some documentaries. You must watch these documentaries. If you of a certain age and you want to learn more, go to Amazon and search for Hidden Colors and buy Hidden Colors 1, 2, 3, and 4 on DVDs. Then you'll start your class. You'll start your evolution. You'll begin your journey to free your mind and to understand what happened to us as a people. So I'm just scattered all over the place. So now Marcus Garvey studied with Booker T. Washington. Now, Booker T. Washington was actually more important than Marcus Garvey. As many books as you can find on Booker T. Washington, buy them. Right? So all these different islands and location started to resist, and these warriors came about. Man and woman, it wasn't just men. In most cases, you heard about the men. But then you have Kimpa Vaita and the warriors in South Africa. At some point, some women will start doing more research to find the foundation of our evolution. But since our mothers are actually our foundation, we could say the foundation of everything is our woman. So now that's where Ma'at comes in, M-A-A-T. That's where the Ten Commandments comes from. Okay? So they didn't want to tell you this, because if they told you that, the story will be incorrect. So there's a lot to unravel. And in 2021, all the teachers assembled in the African American diaspora, and what they did, they spent years, Dr. Clark spent years researching, and Dr. Ben. The fight were no longer the chains on our feet. The fight was the chains on our minds. And Marcus Garvey spoke about this, and Bob Marley, and Selassie, and all the great leaders that were well read and who had access to museums. They talked about the freedom of the mind. What did that look like? Why is voodoo a bad thing? What is voodoo? Well, you'll know voodoo as people sticking dolls. Negative component to what it is. That's what you were taught. You didn't know that all religion came from voodoo. Even Christianity, it comes from voodoo. resurrection and all that. Voodoo. So voodoo is not a hocus pocus witchcraft. It's a system. Now, in order to learn, not say you're going to go practice it, but to learn what it is, you go to a teacher named James Smalls, Professor James Smalls. You go to Tap Video and search for Professor James Smalls. Professor James Smalls is one of the most important teachers of our time, and he's living. So Professor James Smalls will get you up to speed. Okay? So everything that you know, 90% of it has to be unknown, unlearned, purged. So why did I say they never showed us the beauty of Africa when I was growing up in Jamaica? I never saw, and even in New York, I never saw any advertisement for a vacation in Nigeria or Cape Town. I didn't see the beautiful Africa. What I saw was jungle. In 2018, when I went to Africa, I went to Cape Town and I filmed it. And most of my colleagues, my Jamaican brothers and sisters, never knew that Africa was that beautiful in 2018. So it not was just a conspiracy. If the Berlin Conference can cut up Africa, why do you think they can't control the narrative of newspaper and media? And they control that to control the minds. So the people that are here will never venture out to Africa to build Africa. They didn't want us to leave the system that was here to build our own system. Because if we left the Americas and England, they couldn't use our energy. We would be building our own continent, just like China and Japanese. These black people would actually have their own continent that's as progressive as this new world. Mind you, Africa invented mathematics and the binary system. So we talk about cesarean and we talk about penicillin. All of that stuff was invented in Africa. They were doing brain surgery 5,000 years ago. So you have to know that civilization did not start anywhere else but in Nubia, where the Sphinx is, and in River Nile, the Happy Valley, University of Luxor, South Africa, the Pyramid of Zimbabwe. A lot of stuff in Africa you need to unravel. History, why those pyramids are aligned to the ones in Egypt. So now when they did Egyptology and they composed the Bible, everything about Egypt, they painted a bad image. Now, these teachers like Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben had to go to remember I told you about primary information? They went to primary information to attain the information for us. On tapvideo.com, you will be exposed to that primary information to decide for yourself what is true and what is not true. So now our people here in Jamaica and all over the world, they've been fed so many lies, but because they don't know Greek nor Latin and Medjugorje, they can't unlock their mind. They're satisfied with what they know. And that satisfaction gives them a complacency. Hey, we have a beautiful island. We have our churches. We have our God. And we're good. Nobody can tell them anything. They got their book. They're satisfied. They give worship and they praise and they're happy. So, Randy, you're talking nonsense. You can't say nothing to me. I'm good. Remember I told you the man who owns the printer, the man who owns the printer owns the world. So that's what runs the world. Media, radio, books. Okay. So now you have to ask yourself, one, how many African languages do you know? Two, how many times did you go back to Africa And can you read the primary information on the walls? There's a temple called the Temple of UNAS. That's where original scriptures is. So when you talk about the Torah and the Maccabee and all this stuff, no. Original scripture comes from the coffin text inside the coffin. That's where they stole information to write the Bible. Okay? So you're getting a real nice education because I'm on my way to complete the mission at the Marcus Garvey Liberty Hall. From here, we will start a new Jamaica with a new mind because I'm going to give you access to new information. Never before. It took 5 years for me to encode the videos and upload them. I spoke to you about a man named Clemson Brown. Let's get back to that. So it was Clemson Brown, as a warrior, he spent over 50 years recording videos in Africa. He went to Africa 20 times after Dr. Ben, remember I told you about Dr. Ben? Told him, you're lying to the people. And he was so mad when he went back to Africa and started to learn about the Osiris and Set story, which later on turned into the Jesus story. He was upset. When he started learning about the 16 crucified saviors, he got very upset. There's a book called 16 Crucified Saviors. You should look into that. So you want to rewind this and take some notes. But the reason why I've been on this mission, like the missionaries, is to put back in place in the mind of our people what was hidden from us and forcefully taken away. A world that was never showed to us. There are things my mother does not know. Sometimes our elders, they've done their work and they leave us as the next generation to continue their work. My job is to pick up where my ancestors left off. So I consider myself, I am my ancestors. And whatever it takes, and when I was called for this mission, and I met Clemson Brown, and I started to do this work, and the more videos I watched, is the more I was committed to help my people to understand better. Because knowledge is one way to give a better consciousness and foundation. One of the main reasons our people are fighting each other because they don't know of their greatness. To activate their melanin, their vitamin D, their universal power. To activate that is very important. Oh, you guys can see me. This is Randy talking. So, whoops, driving on the highway. So I'm doing this presentation because it's been over 20 years I've been working on this project. I had a vision to build learning centers across Jamaica. And we're going to take USBs and a lot of history videos, and we're going to give these USBs to different people in different places in Jamaica. They're going to plug into their TV, and the learning is going to start. And the ghetto youths and the other youths, they're going to start to have a higher level of consciousness. And it is the mind that we're going to reprogram in order to get back low crime, a productive society. It is the minds of our people that's challenged. And that can be reversed with information. So the freedom key we brought to Jamaica is that information. And over time, as we plant this seed, it will lower. See? Lower the negative energy and increase the consciousness. We always say, a man is not a man because he has the ability to have children. A woman is not a woman because she has the ability to have children. You're born with the ability to reproduce, but you're not born with a certain mind. You're not yet a man or a woman if you don't have a high level of consciousness. Now, most of these consciousness was transcribed and plagiarized from Africa to what you call the Bible today. So some of that information seeps into our consciousness, and we say, I'm good, Randy, I'm good. I'm following the laws of Jesus Christ. I'm showing love and I'm living in righteousness. I'm not cheating on my wife. Why do I need African information? Well, that information, there's more to the Bible. There's more wisdom. There's more word. A book called Maxim of Patimotep is the first complete book in the world. There's a lot of wisdom there. There's a lot of books in Luxor written by women. So there's a lot more word out there that will help you balance. Any human being that insists that you can't grow anymore because you got a book and it's good is fighting the inevitable. Now, because of the internet is why we've learned all of this. There's a saying, if you do something for 10,000 hours, you become an expert at it. But what I did was to sit in a room for over 7 years and watch videos. And that's why I have this mind. That's why my ancient Kemetic or my African spirit has been activated. This is what gives me this happiness and this balance. When we built the pyramids, we had this. Now that balance was taken away from us. And what we intend to do with the new team that I'm building is to give this back to the youths that are destroying themselves. They can only save themselves by changing their minds. You're not yet a man nor a woman if you don't have a growth. And growth doesn't stop in the Bible. History is knowledge. And the Bible is a combination of many things. And I'm going to take a break and I'll be right back. I'm going to pay some tolls. Now I want to show you what's going on in Jamaica. You see these soldier trucks? Take a look at your future, Jamaica. What's going to happen, a lot more of these are going to come into Jamaica. Because Jamaica, you might think it's a third world country or whatever. Jamaica is actually one of the most advanced nations on the planet. And I'll explain to you. And if you like my lectures, go buy a t-shirt. Buy me coffee. Donate. So I continue the movement. Gas has to be paid. I spent over $40,000 of my own savings to do this. Because it's the right thing to do. Randy's no crazy madman. Randy's one of the most brilliant Jamaican ever lived. But Randy never tell nobody. Because Randy wanted to find his destination. And today, we're on the way to Marcus Garvey, Liberty All, to give my people liberty once and for all. Isn't it beautiful that I took my time and now we're going to help to liberate the minds of our people. All right, so now let's continue. What if I didn't have any cash? What would happen?
You have to park on the side and try to see if we can get some assistance.
So there's no ATM nearby or nothing? No, you don't use debit card?
May I have the entrance card, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. So why wouldn't they implement debit cards? All right, people, so when you're driving on the highway, make sure you... So where can you get the Easy Pass?
Normally it is sold by the sales office.
Got it.
Currently they don't have it in the machine.
And they can't do it online? Okay.
No.
Thank you so much.
So the machine to install it on your vehicle,
Yeah.
they don't have it currently because the shipment was delayed.
Oh, no problem. Now, how much did you charge me? And there's another toll?
Where are you going?
Kingston.
So you can actually just take the straight, go exit left, continue straight, and then take your right.
If I don't exit, there's another one for 400, right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Not 400, 209.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but you'll have to exit and go on
Yeah.
right if you want to
I'll
take
continue.
over.
I'll continue. Thanks so much. All right, my people. So you see, What I'm saying to you is this, my people. You see those trucks over there? That's the new Jamaica. Jamaica is
In 200 meters, take the ramp to Mandela Highway A1.
Jamaica is
Mandela Highway, then merge onto Mandela Highway.
Jamaica is a first world nation. And that's a history class. I went into professor mode for a second there. So Randy, but I thought you were a buffoon. I thought you were a crazy guy just running around laughing and talking. Aha! But Randy, I didn't know you knew so much. Aha! You tricked us, Randy. We thought you were just a joker. Aha! You know, I like to joke around. I know so much that sometimes I want to unknow what I know. So I talk foolishness just to ease my mind. Because there's 400 videos in my brain. I'm walking around with a library. It's like the film called The Book of Eli. And when I get into teaching mode, it's like, whoa. So I could summarize this stuff for you really well and show you some of the things you don't know. So now, let's continue. So basically, Jamaica in the future has things that no other place is going to have. Why is Jamaica so important in the future? Well, water, food. Jamaica can never be flooded. Now, the world is going to start being really flooded. The climate change is going to affect the world. So a lot of people don't know this, but because there's always sun here, there's going to always be food here and always going to be water. And the climate is going to get terrible in the States and even in Jamaica. So we have a blessed country, and a lot of people want this country. I'm not going to say anything about the C thing or the V thing, but as you can see, there's a lot of flooding in China, Germany. You see Afghanistan was just taken over. You see Russia and China. So it's all about resource now. The future is about resource. It's about resource. So African resource. So this is what the future Jamaica looks like. You're going to get a lot of those trucks. You're going to see a lot of them. Jamaica is going to turn into a military zone. Okay? And I'm being escorted in because I'm going to the Marcus Garvey Center, and they knew I was coming. And I'm the great liberator. Yeah, okay, Randy. Yeah, all right. Nobody knows you. Yeah, they're escorting me in, so I'm safe to present. Now, I joke out everything. You say, why you joke out so much? Why not serious? Let me tell you something. Pressure bust pipe. Don't be serious about nothing. Even when you're fighting the revolution, dressing in the dirty clothes, don't make nobody see you. I'm maroon. So as you can see, we have a maroon head wrap. And I'm from Norway and Manchester. And sometimes my family didn't understand me. They're like, Randy, no sense, it's something right in our head. They must said things that we don't know about. But they didn't see all the information that I saw. They didn't go to Africa. They didn't have the teachers, and that book sold for 60. They're still in the system somehow. So why didn't you become a professor, Randy? Why didn't you just No. You gotta stay low. You gotta be a maroon. Some of your own people won't listen to you. They'll say you're mad. And they call me a madman in clean clothes because I was saying stuff like my aunt and Akaneken and I was saying stuff that people was like, what is he talking about? They didn't know any of it because they were in the British system. So now in this lecture, I didn't beat up my people that much. In the past, when I used to teach, I used to beat them up and but I'm taking it more easy now with my people. But you must understand why Jamaica Good Life movement was important. I wanted to show you your country. And I wanted you to come home, just like Garvey wanted you to go to Africa. Because this island, with the herbal alternatives, and with the future, when the highways are done, and all the airports that they're improving, oh, this country and the ports that they're building, this country is going to be very rich. So if you own land with your grandmothers, I'm always telling you this. You don't have to believe nothing I'm saying, but this is what you have to pay attention to. Plant breadfruit tree. That's what I said to you. Plant trees, my people. On your grandmother's land. Food shortage. 5 years from now, crime on certain things is going to be so bad that no breadfruit now go left on no tree.
Continue for 6 kilometers.
The people who live in the third Jamaica, I told you Jamaica is divided into 3 parts. The rich Jamaica, the middle class Jamaica that works hard, and then the gangster life and the killers and the murderers and the, you know, the ones, they're not resisting anything. They refuse to just do anything productive. Those are the ones that will come steal your breadfruit in the night. 5 years from now, food price is gonna go through the roof all over the world. So it's important for you to do long-term farming, like planting trees and pear trees, breadfruit trees, and fence your place with bamboos and stuff like that, and set up your cameras. Work with your family the best way. So I'm giving you a prediction for the future. Food prices are going to go out the roof. If you live in town and you think you have to, what you have to do, you have to go to the country and plant some trees. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm keep telling you about now. Listen, I'm gonna go check out my orange trees on this journey. Then I'm gonna check out my mint trees and things. So I came down to Jamaica and trying to find people I could work with. Some people I can, some people you can't. And that's part of the challenge. So you just have to know when you're in Jamaica, learn as much as you can learn to move by yourself, or people you could trust. Because in Jamaica, because you're coming from the state, you're just seen as a dollar bill. So this journey that I'm going on is to the Marcus Garvey Liberty Hall, where I will release the tapvideo.com and my mission to liberate my people, especially in Jamaica. Because if you don't do it in Jamaica, the world can't receive it. And if it's not coming from the Marcus Garvey Liberty Hall in Manchester, it's not coming from anywhere. That's where liberty starts in Jamaica. It's from Manchester to Trenchtown. It was Marcus Garvey, then Bob Marley. Okay, that's why we say it's Manchester, then Trenchtown. Okay, and that's what a lot of people don't know. Manchester is a very important place because of the Liberty Hall in Resource, Manchester, from 1929. So that's where Garvey started the movement. That's the second Liberty Hall in the world. One is in New York, one is in Kingston. Okay? But that's the first one in Jamaica. So what we're gonna do is to sell our coffee and castor oil to raise money in order to fix up the Liberty Hall. The government is supposed to be fixing it up, but anything Marcus Garvey, most of the British-minded Christians don't care about Marcus Garvey. It's more about their religion and their God than an actual liberator or a freedom fighter. They're not into, most of them, they're not into Pan-Africanism. When you say Africa, they have a bad